And welcome everybody to our very first Rosco Live Clubhouse event with Chad Tiller and Al Crawford. I'm going to moderate. And first I'm going to, though, introduce Chad Tiller, who's been with Rosco for 14 years now. He's got a background in theater, and he is the VP of Global Live Entertainment Market for Rosco. And I'm going to hand this now over to Chad.
Thanks so much, Nikki, and we are excited to kind of kick this off. This has sort of been a little bit of a labor of love for a while. We've been wanting to get this rolling, a little interview series from Rosco, talking to designers in all of the theatrical disciplines. So we hope it'll be more than just a lighting channel, but we're going to try to do this for as many folks as we can, as often as we can, and try to get a little bit of the spotlight pointed onto designers. I find here on Clubhouse, a lot of the theatrical chat is about actors and producers and unions and things like that. That's what I've been seeing. I haven't seen much pointed at the designers, so we decided to hop into the new and exciting world of Clubhouse to bring the Rosco Live series to you guys. And kicking it off, I couldn't think of a better guest to start this with than Mr. Albert Crawford. Al is the lighting director of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. He's been with Alvin Ailey for 25 years this summer. He's the CEO and founder of Arc 3 Design, and I'm sure he'll be telling us a little bit about his design work there. Al is a UNC School of the Arts grad. He's a guest faculty of UNC School of the Arts. He's on the board of directors at UNC School of the Arts. He's also board of directors at the Hemsley. He's a guest. He's a KOI Knights of Illumination Award winner. He is a Telly Award winner. So it is our absolute honor to have somebody with this distinguished resume join us for the first ever Rosco Live. Al, how are you today, my friend?
My friend Chad, I can't thank you enough for having me join Clubhouse and learning that it's audio only, which means I didn't have to put clothes on.
Now we all have that visual in our head, which is exciting. I gotta say, when we were talking,
does anyone regret inviting me at this point?
Not yet. I gotta say, when we were talking about doing Clubhouse, the lack of a visual medium, I thought, well, is this going to work out for us? We're talking about entertainment design. We're talking about how theatrical lighting designers use the tools of their craft. Is this format going to work out? So hopefully we'll find workarounds. But I think the descriptors that you choose to lay out before us will paint the picture nonetheless. So Al, I want to get right in. I did a quick overview of your resume, and people can tap on your profile and reread all of those things I briefly touched on. But Al, I'd love it if you could tell me, how did you get started in entertainment design?
Well, my family was around the arts quite a bit. I'm from North Carolina, so I grew up in a town, Raleigh, which had a really thriving arts scene in the late 70s, early 80s, still does. But instead of going to daycare, I went to the theater. I started going to theater camps, and I have a father who's a very successful musician, so I grew up around that. I was touring for much of my toddler ages with my dad, so I was around music. I was around artistic people, and it just became part of my blood. And so as I got a little bit older, I continued to be interested in theater. At the time, mostly performance, acting, singing. I played the cello, I played piano. But then I started painting, and I started doing sculpture, and was really interested in visual art. I ended up going to a wonderful high school in Michigan called Interlochen Arts Academy. And Interlochen, I went for performance. I was an acting major and a dance minor. And then when I got there, I realized that the visual art program was exceptional. And so I started painting. I started taking 3D art classes and really cool non-traditional visual art installation classes. And here, and keep it in reference, I'm 14, 15 years old at the time. But I still wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be in the theater. I wanted to be a performer and be involved in those kinds of things. and I had a teacher that said, you should take a lighting class. And I was like, I don't really understand. I said, no, you should take a lighting design class. And so I did. And no pun intended, all the puns intended, I saw the light, right? I realized that lighting was going to be that thing that connected all the things I loved about live performance, all the things I loved about visual art, and I could sew all those things together. I could do opera and theater and concerts and visual art and environmental, which I didn't realize was going to be so much a part of my career path. And then I went to North Carolina School of the Arts. I got a fairly classic theater lighting and dance lighting training, which helped me very much to allow me to be successful, move to New York City, and I guess, as they say, the rest is history. So,
well, that's awesome. I want to know, do you recall the teacher's name who said you should take that lighting class? Can we give a shout out to the inspiration?
Well, actually, the person who first told me was a guy named Ken Attaway. And that was actually in 8th grade, just pre-Interlochen, who kind of planted the nugget. And then there was a gentleman named Bill Brown, who really ended up being an incredible mentor to me during my high school years. And he's the one that really drove it forward.
I love that. I think that mentorship in the lighting world is such a big part of how people get going. And I'm here to call out and support mentorships. And I know that you, in turn, pay it forward through some of your activities. Tell me a little bit about what mentorship means to you as a mentor and as someone who has been mentored.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'll just say, and maybe I'll talk about Bill here in the greater to answer your question ultimately. But Bill Brown ultimately was one of those people who, as a young person, was really able to put you in an environment where you could dream, you could feel you could see successes. He pushed you to think. He pushed you to do things that you weren't going to be comfortable doing because he knew you would learn something. He took his experiences and put us, all his mentees over time, but he put us in environments that he knew would ultimately be things that we referenced even as professionals later down the line. And I will say he had a number of mentees, many of them who have gone on to become very successful, one of which also was Mr. Craig Stelzmuller, who you and I both know, was also a mentee of Bill Brown coming out of Raleigh, North Carolina. So Craig and I had a very similar trajectory. Craig and I literally played in the sandbox together, if you will, growing up.
I love that.
And now Craig is one of the most successful Broadway associates, you might say, in history, right? So, for me, menteeship is something that I now need to be a huge part of my world. I love focusing on the future of this industry. I think it's incredibly important that menteeship and that kind of support from someone who has had the success or the experience passes that on, and that it's something you just can't get from undergrad or grad school or traditional training programs. I always talk about, you've got to, as a student designer, you've got to find someone that you believe in. You've got to believe in their work. You've got to believe in their vision and their processes and their spirit, and get under their wing. And that will be the thing that really teaches you to be a citizen of the theater.
I love that. And so how have you, now that you are the successful lighting designer that you are, I know some of the things that I rattled off in your resume lend themselves very closely to mentorship. Can you tell us a little bit about the Hemsley Lighting Program and a little bit about sort of the role of mentorship that you play as being part of that organization?
Absolutely. I've been honored to be a part of the Hemsley internship program since I started at Alvin Ailey 24 years ago. The Hemsley Lighting Program has a number of layers, but its primary program is the internship. The internship is established as an experience for a young intern or a graduating lighting design student. It is named after lighting designer Gilbert Hemsley, who passed away. Help me, Chad. Maybe in the early '80s.
Yeah, I want to say it was early or mid '80s. That's right.
Yeah. An amazing individual. Really is known in our industry as someone who was so giving of his art and so giving of his time to young designers. And so these programs are done in his honor. But this internship allows a special student to be able to be a part of some professional organizations. It changes every year a little bit, depending on the professional company's availabilities. But in general, the intern gets to spend significant time and do full seasons with Alvin, Ailey American Dance Theater, with me in particular, New York City Ballet, in the past, Lincoln Center Festival, also San Francisco Opera. So, we try to create an opportunity that would never get easily just coming out of school. And so they learn these experiences, they get to watch, they get to listen, they also get to be actively a part of the lighting teams of all of these organizations. And our hope is when they're done, they not only take those experiences, but they take the relationships and the network that they've built going through that whole year of tactile conversations and meeting designers at tables and then leverage those relationships towards creating their own career. So.
I love that. And of course, Rosco has had a long and close relationship with the Hemsley programs as well. Gil Hemsley and Roscoe's owner, Mr. Stan Miller, were very close and very good friends and professional colleagues. And I know that after Gil's passing, Rosco endeavored to support the programs. And most explicitly, we have Rosco Lux 361, designed by Mark Stanley. And Mark Stanley made the color in Gil's honor. It's a great crisp blue, if anybody doesn't know it. And of course, the proceeds of Rosco 361 Hemsley Blue are passed along to the programs every year. I think we eclipsed $42,000 in our years of giving. So we're happy to continue that program. Al, I wanted to talk a little bit about that large chunk of time that you've been the lighting director for Ailey. Roughly, if you had to place a number on it, how many pieces are in the repertoire of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater?
Approximately 225, and that is over 60 years of the company's history.
Yeah, and it's not a stagnant number. I mean, they're still producing new work every year. I think in the most recent season, didn't Brandon Baker design Ode? That was a new piece, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Every year, we have approximately 4 or 5 new world premieres by different choreographers that come with their own lighting designers often and work with our team to create new designs for the repertoire. And then we have classic pieces from the Ailey's history that comes back. Not just Alvin Ailey's work, which is amazing and wonderful to reproduce, but ballets that have been in the rep that were made during the 70s and 80s that have get remounted, and our fans get to re-experience them today. So all of that is a part of developing the repertoire and a part of our hard, the hard work that our lighting team does. So.
Sure, and I know that if you have the pleasure to have one of the IATSE crew members give you a tour of the Metropolitan Opera House, take that opportunity. There's my free recommendation to everybody. But one of the things that I saw when I toured the Met is up in the flies, they have spike tape on the battens for almost all of the different shows, so they know exactly where to tie off different curtain pieces, different borders or teasers, different pieces of scenery that need to be tied onto the battery in the fly house. They are producing their repertoire of shows or their repertoire of shows in the same space every time. That's not what happens for Ailey. You guys are touring the world. You have to bring that 1970s show to a theater in Amsterdam or a theater in Milan or a theater in Birmingham. Talk to me about the challenges that presents.
Absolutely. First of all, yes, of course it's a challenge, but it is also the joy of the job. I often say that, yes, all those things can be frustrating. They can be a challenge. There's definitely hard work. Working with a company that ultimately has 225 shows under its belt, as opposed to a sort of classic Broadway environment in which you might just have one show and you're going to and touring around, or you're going to the same theater every night. So for me, it's exciting because there's always a new challenge. There's always a new crew. There's always a new stage. There's always a new place that we're hanging the gear. There's a new power environment. What the stage looks like from the audience's perspective, depending on their rake. The rake of the house or the shape of the house changes. So every day we get to re-examine those environments and make decisions about how the Ailey company is going to look. At the same time, we are put up against us, as you might imagine, significant time challenges. And those time challenges are created purely by economics. We've got to get the show in a certain amount of time, or the numbers don't work from a financial perspective, right? So it's about creating all that balance, coming up with such a clear plan of how we manage the ballets, how we package it together so it moves fast. And all of those things have been refined to literally to shave seconds, literal seconds off of processes in an effort to be able to get the most beautiful show in the most efficient way and have the curtain go up and look as consistent as it did yesterday in what might be the Metropolitan Opera House. But today we're in Duluth, right? So
Absolutely.
And that's the joy of what we've brought and my teams over the years that I've been at Ailey, is to be able to figure all those little details out. It's kind of a game, right? Is how do we figure out how to do, ballets coming to the rep? They're incredibly complex. Well, okay. Well, if we just had this one ballet, it would be no big deal. But we're inserting this enormously complex ballet into maybe a touring repertoire of 20-some ballets already. And they're not adding time to the load-in. So how do you figure that out, right? And then on the back end, how do you talk to a lighting designer, a guest lighting designer that's coming in, who wants to add so many things for their vision, which, trust me, I get it. I'm a lighting designer. I know you need tools to be able to create unique moments and environments. So I'm sensitive to making sure they have the tools to create something powerful and special and transformative. But at the same time, the little birdie on my shoulder is saying, you got to be off the stage at 4:00, Al, right? So it's a lot of fun, but it is a lot of hard work. Would I choose going, no offense to, any of my colleagues who have made this choice and they're very happy with it, but would I choose to go do my 9 shows a week on Broadway and in the same theater with the same show and know that I'm off at 10:27 every night? No, I wouldn't. I have so much fun doing this job, that particular job in my life. And people who come into our environment, I think, enjoy it too. So.
Well, I love that. Before my next question, I want to give Nikki an opportunity to refresh the room, just for anybody who might have joined us. Go ahead, Nikki.
Hello, everyone. We are here talking with Chad Tiller from Rosco, VP of our live entertainment market, and guest Al Crawford, amazing lighting designer. We're going to, after the conversation, we'll open the room in case there's any questions. And of course, anybody out there who is listening in that's enjoying the conversation, we encourage you to ping other people that are on Clubhouse in, because this has been a really great conversation. And I'm going to hand it right back over to Chad.
Thanks, Nikki. Thanks for doing that. And hello to all of my friends and followers that I see in the bottom. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Reza. Good to see you both. Al, I want to circle back to this concept of the opportunity and challenge that it is to move from one house to the next and put on this show. You've got to have fidelity to the original look of the show, right? That's part of the gig, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely.
And So my question is, when you move from City Center in New York City to the Paramount Theater in Abilene, Texas, because I know that's where you're going next. The Paramount Theater does not have the same gear in the lighting inventory that the City Center might have, and you guys don't necessarily tour with a semi full of lighting equipment. So
we do actually.
You do? Okay.
Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about what you choose to take with you and what do you rely on the house to provide?
100%. And there is some consideration there, and I can talk to it when we go to international stops, right? So in the U.S., in the United States, when we tour domestically, we absolutely do take everything with us. We are 3 semi-trucks. And one 53-foot truck is completely filled with our lighting rig. And that rig, it can be loaded. It is packaged in a way that it can be installed starting at 8 a.m., focused and completely show ready by 4 p.m., 7 hours. It is a choreographed ballet of sorts, our load-in. And having that plot with us and our truck does allow us an incredible level of consistency, because all we really need to do a show is pipes, power, and people. So if I have a place to hang it, my Rosco mega clamps will hang on just about anything, right? I can literally hang this light plot on a tree. If long as I have electricity, I don't care. As long as I have enough to handle it, I can adjust for whatever power they have. And of course, most importantly, we need some people to come and sit in seats and watch the performance, right? Other than that, we can pretty much adjust the plot to fit most theaters. And when we adjust the plot, I would say 90% of the time it has to do with depth. Most theaters are wide enough for us, but there are some theaters that don't have the total depth that we would ideally have. So we have to sometimes cut some electrics, sometimes pack them in, as they say. Sometimes they don't have enough pipes, so we might have to hang a truss so that I could get a couple cords, so I could get a couple electrics worth of stuff where they might not have a pipe. So there are solutions to all these situations, but ultimately in the end, the plot gets focused on a stage that we put down, on a Marley floor that we put down, with backdrops that we hung, with a light plot that we brought in the door. So that does allow us, thankfully, in many ways, the ability to be able to consistently create a show every night. Now, internationally, the economics do not allow us to take that 53-foot truck and take it with us. So 9 times out of 10, if we're doing one-offs around the world, and what I mean by that is not a tour, so not a 12 cities in the UK or 8 cities in Germany, where we might actually go and build a package, much like we do in the United States. If we're doing a week in Greece, and then a week in London, and then a week in Paris, and then a week in Germany, that kind of schedule, we use house equipment generally. So 90% of the gear is using the house inventory. We often negotiate to get a little rental if there's some supplement that needs to happen, that if there's gear that they don't have. Of course, we try to be aware of budget and to make sure that they have a successful run in economics, because we want to come back, right? But we bring the things that are complicated. I bring the console. I bring all the DMX racks. I bring the scrollers. Yes, we still have scrollers. We bring the
so you're the one.
Yeah, we bring the scroller power supplies and its cable. And we bring the gobos and their holders. We bring gel and our fiber frames. But then the fixtures, the dimmers, the cable, our house, right? So that's a very traditional international scenario for us. And that way I know the console's going to be right, the file's going to be right, playback's going to be right. As long as they're dimming, their cable, their power, their fixtures all perform, which tend to be, fairly robust, then we know the show's going to look pretty good. So,
is there a specific time you can think of where the look of the show was impacted by the house gear?
Sure. It happens all the time. We do our absolute best to...
I really want you to dish the tea here, Al. I'm really asking for the dirt here, right?
Yeah, I'll give it to you. I'll totally give it to you. So, I will say it happens in a good way sometimes. Because in the United States, we're traveling with beautiful fixtures by our friends from ETC, right? Source 4s and moving lights and, very modern equipment. Everything is beautiful. And we're working very hard on some of these legacy projects to bring the quality of light, to recreate the quality of light for the performances using very contemporary equipment. Sometimes when we go internationally and I'm forced to create a plot that's par 64s and 2K Robert Juliet's or ADB fixtures, down on dimmer, everything has a different quality of light. It feels warmer. It feels more like what we would expect the original lighting to feel like. And so although it may not be consistent to what it looks like at the Kennedy Center or a City Center or our U.S. tour, the challenge actually becomes something beautiful to experience at that moment, that week. And my team, we revel in enjoying the differences, right?
Oh, that's the sampler we're going to cross stitch for the wall. Revel and enjoy the differences. I love that.
Why not? Sometimes we go non-traditional places like the Herodaticus Odeon in Greece, in Athens, which is a 5,000-year-old theater. That space is Parcan backlight, some moving lights, and some front light washes. And I literally run the show live with submasters. So, yeah, that affects the look of the show. But guess what? Our team knows the shows so well. They not only know what the shows are supposed to look like, they understand the intention of the lighting, right? And so we're able to go into Cyprus or Athens or a cafe gymnatorium or a non-traditional space where we've just got to punt. And it happens. And because we understand the intent of the lighting, we can create a solution that not only do the audiences enjoy, but we can feel confident that we did the right thing.
Oh, I love that. And we shouldn't imply that every theater is less than. I know that there are venues where you've moved in and found improvements. I mean, even if at minimum, when Ailey has made a guest appearance on a dance television program, like Dancing with the Stars or So You Think You Can Dance, I know that you guys have done that in the past. And you find just radically different gear. Sometimes it's what is it? We're going to revel in those differences. I love that. Good. Nikki, I want to pass it out to the audience. I can probably talk to Al for another hour, but I'd love to have anybody that's listening in go ahead and use the raise the hand function and go ahead and ask a question, and we'll be able to pull you up to the stage if you've got a question. Before I continue, Nikki, is there anybody that was Johnny on the spot and has already raised their hand?
Not at the moment.
All right. Well, everybody, you are welcome to ask questions. Pop in here any moment. Nikki will make sure that we get you onto the stage. Al, I'm going to have you, while we're waiting for some questions from the crowd, I'm going to have you go on a myth-busting hunt with me.
Ooh, all
right?
This sounds fun.
Myth or not? Is this fact or fiction?
Okay.
Fact or fiction, you can light talent with green light.
Fact.
Tell me more.
I mean, whoever came up with the rule that you can't, I'm going to be straight up here, y'all. The people, you hear, oh, you can't use green on black people. I work for the Alvin, Ailey American Dance Theater. I've literally designed, dozens of ballets, worked with some of the greatest LDs who understand how to light skin tones across the board. The Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater is built in an African-American heritage, a modern dance tradition that respects the history of blacks in this country. It was built on that spirit. And some of those creations early on in the 60s, 50s, early 70s used so much color, so much rich hue. Designers Chenault Spence, Nick Cernovich, Tim Hunter, these guys were using incredible shades of green, incredible hues, from deep dark Kelly greens to turquoise to, sorry to throw out, acid pale yellow greens, using these colors to bring out emotional context and storytelling. Green is a fantastic color on any skin tone if used correctly. So green is beautiful. It's powerful. In contrast to in your stage picture, should not be afraid of green. It's ridiculous to ever think that a statement should be out there that you cannot use green on actors or dancers ever.
Yeah, I had the privilege of slipping into a class being taught by Alan Lee Hughes at NYU, and Alan was talking about color with some of the NYU graduate students, and he was talking about, someone made a comment that color might be better on Caucasian performers than on African or Black performers, and I thought it was poetic how Alan stopped the conversation and said, if I'm walking down the street and I walk past a neon sign, that light falls on my skin the same way it falls on yours. You can light anybody with anything as long as the light has intention.
That is correct. Beautifully said.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's another knitted sampler on my wall. Al, another myth I want to bust here. You can't ever put gobos on the talent.
Oh my God.
And I know how you feel about this one because you and I have talked about gobos before.
That's total myth. I start with the gobos. Who was it? Neil Peter Jampolis. When I was a kid, growing up in lighting, I literally would look at the Rosco catalogs and I would read the descriptions of the colors inside the little pamphlet that explained all the colors. I'd memorize all the numbers. And I remember seeing a quote in one of the Rosco catalogs from Neil Peter Jampolis, great lighting designer. And he said, a light without a gobo is just a light. It's a light, a template creates so much depth of field, so much storytelling, so much richness. We work our entire lives trying to make lights imperfect, and the manufacturers are doing everything in their power to make them perfect. A gobo allows us to make a Lico imperfect. A half cut of Rosco 119 in a Lico allows half of the beam to be slightly soft and the other half to be strangely sharp. Beautiful. What I love taking these tools that have been refined to be so perfect and so, they say, flat field and look at the edge. And so I'm doing everything in my power to break all that up. And gobos allow us to do that. And then when we throw it on a body, light doesn't look like that in most of our environments. So, false. Yes, gobos on talent. Number one. Any day. All day.
And if you want to hear more about gobos on talent and Al's opinions on gobos, hey, my dog's barking. That's the joys of working from home. If you want to hear more about Al's thoughts on gobos, we did a webinar. Boy, it feels like 100 years ago, but it might have only been 5 or 6. And I think that's available on Rosco's YouTube channel. If you hunt it down, you'll find that. Yeah. I'm going to mute my phone while the dog barks. Hopefully we've got an audience question coming in.
No, not at the moment, but everybody, those that are just joining the room, if you do have a question, you can please raise your hand. Oh, we do have a new hand raise. So I'm gonna bring up Mark into the room. And hello, Mark.
Hello. I'm trying to figure out how to use this new technology. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Great. Well, I'll say thank you, Al. This is Mark Engel. I guess it just says Mark down there with no photo. Speaking of new technologies, what new technologies do you most want to experiment with in your next project?
Very good question. New technologies. I am really interested right now in reflective surfaces. That's the kind of thing I'm playing with. So it's technology, but it's old school. Like, I'm really interested in what light does. Again, going back to what I was just saying about breaking it up and trying to make it less perfect. I'm so interested in what light looks like when it hits a surface and then hits another surface. That's what I'm kind of obsessed with right now. So I'm studying and buying and experimenting with mirrors, with dichroic plastics, with corrugated plastics, with corrugated mirror, with refracted mirror, with broken mirror, with pebbled art glass, etc. So I'm also very interested in, I'm not going to say transitioning, but I really miss creating visual art that's light driven, not necessarily live performance driven. And so during this pandemic, where we haven't done any or very little live performance, I've been sketching so much about more art pieces that don't necessarily require seats and stage and etc. And so some of these quote unquote technologies are really looking back at some of the things that have been used in the past to create interesting light. In terms of modern things, I, in all honesty, decided that I wanted to learn more about consoles. And so the last 25 years, I've had amazing programmers and continue to that have been around me. But I'm at the mercy of them. And not in a bad way, but I just want to know more about how the console works. And so during the pandemic, I've set up a pretty significant pre-visualization suite in my home where, I've got all the different previs softwares, which I've learned during the pandemic. And I have a Hog and an EOS and a Grand MA, and I'm learning all of them so that should I find myself behind a console, which I fully expect to, considering the economics of our new reality, that I have those skill sets. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Oh, no, it does. And there was a follow-up that was in my head, and I think the question was going to be something like, where and when do you experiment? Because I imagine you need a sizable space. I think you answered the when, meaning a lot of free time during pandemic. Yeah. But are you doing this? Are you doing the experiment with the reflected light at your home? Are you able to access a space that has both room and fixtures to do it on a bigger scale?
Yes. That's the easy answer.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
I wonder if everybody has access to the same resources. Maybe not.
I would, in all respect, I've had a 25-year career and I've built an environment in which I can play.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Mark. Great to meet you.
Yeah. Likewise.
We have a question here from Case. Go ahead.
Yeah. Wow. So I when Mark went, I figured out the technology. There's a hand at the right bottom corner of the screen. So hello, everybody. I do want to say hello to Gert-Jan. Gert-Jan, Chad has informed me about your return to the Netherlands, and I just wanted to let you know that I will be contacting you very soon to say hello. Hello, Al. Very nice to meet you. My name is Case. I've been with Rosco for a few years, and When Mark asked this question, I thought for sure your answer was going to be, I want to experiment with LED. I guess I'm obsessed with LED. And I wanted to ask you, color is a very important aspect of your work as a lighting designer. Have you started transitioning, working with color the way we were all used to working with color, the LED future, I'll say? And if so, how are you doing with it? How is it working?
I'm so glad you asked this question. So here's my thought about LEDs at the moment. I come from a place, as many of us did as a lighting designer, growing up on 360Qs and Par 64s. And I learned quite early on what color gel, by all of you who work with Rosco, what it would do at full, what it would do at half, what it would do at 20, what it would do as it was fading out, and sort of the beauty of choosing those colors and making those hard decisions about what colors to choose to tell a story. I absolutely have been using LEDs in a lot of my work across the board, from commercial experiences at Arc3 Design to product launches to broadcast to film and television to architecture, installations, etc. LED is here. We're using it. It is a part of our life, etc. At Ailey, I am as much of an archivist as I am a lighting designer. So a huge part of my job is respecting and understanding the history of what those ballets look like. Even with the most incredible LED fixtures that money can buy and R&D can develop, we are still working on it, meaning all of us as an industry. I cannot, even the best, I cannot accept yet what LED looks like on a body in that particular performance environment. On a theater show, on another dance company, I can totally wrap my head around using that technology. But at Ailey, particularly, that particular group of skin tones, that particular repertoire, LED just does not tell the story the way that incandescent sources do yet. I have so much hope in some of the deep red and the infrared technology that is finding its way into some of these fixtures. But regardless of the drivers, regardless of the technology and the numbers of LEDs, the fire that comes out of the fixture and produces light onto a body wraps the body in a different way than an LED does. It just does. And that has yet to be figured out. And regardless of color rendering, because sure, our range of colors is getting so broad that we can get into all these beautiful tints and tones that we haven't been able to do previously. But the quality of the light is different. And so, yes, totally embraced it. As many of the manufacturers know that I push them every day to work even harder, and they, I love the technology. I love LEDs. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying in that particular environment, it's not there yet. And a lot of the other work I do, fantastic. I love the fixture. I love the capabilities. I love the speed. I love the digital nature in terms of being able to control them, in terms of broadcast, etc. It's just two different worlds. And so I hope that answers your question. But at the same time, I'm excited about it, but I'm terrified of it at the same time, of losing the beauty of what I'm doing in that part of my world.
Yep, that is well said. Two different worlds. Do you have an outlook, a future outlook for those two different worlds? Are they coexist? Is there going to be one? Are they going to merge? Are you already speaking a new language of color with the new technologies that are becoming available, or hanging on to the old vocabulary? I would say.
I still say to my console programmers, give me Rosco 22.
Yeah.
Give me Rosco 03. Give me, and then from there I might tweak it and call it Al's, Dark Amber, because it's something we created, or more specifically, specific to that ballet. Because at Ailey, we create color palettes specific to the work. And so if a ballet designer comes into our repertory to create a new work, let's say Brandon Baker, Brandon may have 6 colors that he wants to create very specific for him. We will call them, let's say it's Ode, Ode Blue 1, Blue 2, Blue 3, Blue 4, or we might say in our notes, Ode Blue 2, like R62.
Yeah.
Right?
So is there already a LED palette, a Crawford LED palette in existence somewhere then?
Certainly with the consoles, we're establishing our own palettes for the sake of speed. But I'm not ready to. I think that maybe in this post-pandemic, we might be at a place where we could start to create that vocabulary. But I'm gonna always feel most comfortable referencing our library history, and my concern is, again, going back to being an archivist, is that 20 years from now, because I'm bringing ballets back from the 50s and 60s and 70s, right, at Ailey. What do I do now in this environment? I can open up the folder. I can look at the data. I can look at the colors. Some of it might be Rosco Lean or Geltran or, Brigham or whatever it is, and I can see those translations. I can make good choices about those colors translations. I can look. I call them love notes. I can look for notes from the designers from the 60s that they put in the folder. This color was blue, but had some deep, rich red undertones. Like, I love it when designers leave me love notes, right? Because what I don't want to have happen is 20 years from now, a designer is bringing a ballet back, and they're looking at an EOS file at RGB, AW, data numbers that don't mean jack to anyone, right? And so that is what I'm up against. How do I create a archive and a documentation that translates to a future that is unknown? That's where I'm at right this moment.
Not to continue my name-dropping habits, but I was talking to a designer named Rui Rita about this specific challenge, and I said, what tools do you use to communicate about color when you're talking with your collaborators? And his response, I don't know if he meant it flippantly. I did not take it flippantly, but he said, I use words, right? And I think in your sense, he's writing love notes. He's saying, I need that frosty moonlight blue. That means something to him more than hue, saturation, and intensity data, right?
Totally. Yeah. Great question. Thank you.
Hey, Albert, Al, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Of course.
That was great. Can I just say a quick hello to Matthias Bonenpol, just joined. It's good to see you here.
Hello, Matthias.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see you here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Al. Thank you.
Thank
hello,
you.
Matthias.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Case, for taking the stage. And yes, thank you, Matthias, for making it in. I want to be respectful of Al's time. I know he's got a busy schedule. So if there's any last-minute questions, this is probably your moment before we thank him for his time and bid him farewell. Is there anybody last questions before we bounce?
Yes, we just brought Reza, I believe your name is, into the room.
Hi, Reza.
Hi, Chad. Hi, Al. Thank you
Hello.
so much for this conversation. I'm really enjoying it. Just following up on that LED conversation, I totally understand the aesthetic concerns and what we're doing and, how the colors are translating. But one thing, not as a lighting designer necessarily, I question myself. I feel like as a theater person or someone, you feel like there's a responsibility on me as an artist, how I'm responding to climate change or all of the things that, is destroying our planet. And I feel like it is one of the best part of using LED and related, technology to do our part, because unfortunately theater and entertainment industry is not a super clean industry. And yeah, I want to listen your take on that. Is it something that can compensate that?
The short answer is I totally agree. I would also love to see the trucks become electric, being an electric car owner myself. The amount of fossil fuels being used in the trucking industry is significant in how we get the gear that we purchase from A to B. How do we get the gear from the theaters from A to B? So the fossil fuels there, I think, is important to consider. Electricity in the theater, absolutely. It obviously uses a lot more electricity using incandescents than LEDs. How we develop that electricity is the larger question in terms of considering climate change. I went through, and I do. I challenge myself with this constantly, but I also consider, the scale of our industry compared to some larger industries that are just literally taking us down in terms of the environment. We are but a minuscule piece of the larger issue. Should we do our part? Absolutely. But I'm trying to hang on to the art, man. I mean, that's part of something that I feel is incredibly important to at least transition gracefully. And I know that it will change. I know that inevitably the economics will not allow me to have a rig full of incandescent fixtures traveling around the world for the rest of my career as a lighting designer. I totally get it. It is the smart thing to do to transition. It absolutely is. But it's the little piece of hope that's left for that kind of look. That large shows just look different now. They just do. They feel different and they look different. I'm not saying they're wrong or they're worse or they're better. They're different. And
we get to revel in the differences, right?
We get to revel in the differences. That is absolutely right.
Well, thank you for that powerful question, Reza.
Thank you so much for answering so beautifully. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely, my pleasure.
And Al, I can't thank you enough for your time. You're a scholar, obviously. You're a gentleman, obviously. Before we let you go, let's give a quick shout out. You can find out more about Al's work at arc3design.com. That's ARC, the number 3 design.com. You can learn more about the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater at alvinailey.org. Of course, you can learn all about Rosco at rosco.com. And for those who have not gotten enough of listening to Al and Chad banter about design, we did find that YouTube video of the hour-long webinar that we did about use of gobos. We've thrown that onto our Facebook page. So if you go to the Rosco Facebook page, you'll be able to find the Al and Chad chatting about texture in light a little bit further there. Mr. Crawford, thank you for your time, my friend. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure. I will just say before we sign off, I know we're all thinking a lot of the same thing. What is this going to look like? Our world, our environment, our jobs, our careers, our art form, all of it. I think we're all going to be okay, y'all. Right? I really do. I am seeing it come back. My phone is ringing. The emails are building. People are wanting to do things. We're going to have a renaissance of connection. People are going to want to be together. We're going to be great. We're going to be fine. So I'm trying to tell everyone that I know and love, particularly in the lighting industry that has suffered so much, our particular family of people across the world, we're going to be okay. We're going to be better than okay. So just want to put that out there. Thank you, Chad. Love you so much. And I appreciate you letting me join today. So.
Excellent. Thanks, Al. And Nikki, I'll hand it over to you to close out the room.
Thanks again, Al. That was really great, especially that last comment, because I was actually going to ask you your feelings on where we stand. So I'm so glad your phone is ringing. That means our phones will be ringing, and that we'll all be getting together really soon. And I want to thank everybody who came to listen in on this really great conversation. If we did our jobs right, we recorded this, and we will have it up later that you can share around to your friends who missed this. We will be doing more of these, so keep your eyes open for that, and I guess more your ears open for that, and share those rooms hopefully with people as we move forward. So thank you again, Al. Thanks, Chad. Thanks everybody who came by, and we will see you next time around.